Hi everyone, I'm Carrie DiTullio, one of Ben's local real estate brokers, and I just so happen to be here today with one of Ben's awesome mortgage lenders, Benny. We're in Northwest Crossing, definitely a popular spot to be when you're on the west side of Bend. It has all the schools, there's businesses, restaurants, offices. Benny's office is here. And we just thought today would be a very good time, it's April 1st, to do a first quarter market update. As everyone knows, interest rates have been the subject lately, and the fact that they're going up, really going up pretty significantly for the first time in years and years. So Benny is here to kind of give us his take on what that means and maybe how long he thinks it's going to be around, and maybe some advice on how to kind of navigate through that if you're in the home buying place, or even if you're a seller and worried about how that's going to impact your buyers. So Benny, we love to hear what you have to say. So let us know kind of what your thoughts are.
Hot topic, and thank you for having me.
Yeah.
You know, as we went into the pandemic, we saw rates get down to, artificially low rates is what I call those.
Artificially.
Those were not real, those rates. Unfortunately, we get used to those rates. When we start to see a climb in interest rates, it's a big shock, right? So what we've seen in the recent future going into 2022, the big word that we're hearing is inflation. Inflation typically is the arch enemy to mortgage rates. So when you hear inflation, usually rates are rising, and that's why we've seen such a dramatic fashion. Now, in the rate that's increased, which is about 1.5% in rate in about 2 or 3 months, is a big move in rates, and that's nothing that we had forecasted. So now we're watching inflation rise. We're hearing the Fed talk about raising the Fed's funds rate. And when we hear that, we all think that mortgage rates are going to move in that same fashion. It ends up that the Fed's funds rate is a completely different spectrum than mortgage rates. So usually what happens is inflation rises, the Fed will increase the Fed's funds rate, and usually at that point it's going to drive us into a recession. So now the new word is not inflation, it's now recession.
Okay.
And historically over the last 40 years, when we go into a recession, interest rates drop. So we're seeing this intermittent climb with inflation as the recession comes in, which could be, time happens so fast now. Usually we can gauge this from 12 to 18 months out. I would say in the next 12 months, we'll be in some sort of a recession, and then we should see interest rates drop.
Okay, well, the interesting part about that is if we're in a recession, people might not feel as loose with their money, or possibly thinking about an upgrade with a home.
Sure.
So how do you kind of tell people that are now thinking, is it the right time to buy, even if rates are a little bit higher than they've been, even if it was artificially, like you said, we got used to it, and appreciated it, our dollar went further.
Sure.
So do you advise people that are kind of on the fence right now that if they have good, strong income, to maybe just kind of go for it and possibly refinance later if the rates do drop?
Right, I think it's a great question. So historically, I look at the data. So if you look back at all the recessions from 1980, so 40 years ago, we went through 6 recessions. 5 of those 6 recessions, home prices went up. The only one that went down was the big one in 2008 and 9 and 10.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was the types of loans that were being offered to people. If you had a pulse, you can get a mortgage, right? 100% financing, low credit scores. Since then, those don't exist anymore. So why prices went down in that time was people were over leveraged, they couldn't afford the payment anymore, and through that recession, values dropped. So if you look historically, you think recession, we all think 2008 that values are going to drop. 2020 in the pandemic was a recession, and values shot up, right? So historically, over the last 40 years, values actually go up over that. So my advice to my clients is real estate is always going to be there, right? So if financially it works for your budget and you're allowed to buy, that is the best time to buy, right? We know that even if values trend down or plateau, that historically values always go up. So the vision should be in home ownership, I'm gonna live in this house from 5 to 7 years or plus, and I'll ride through any sort of correction that we may have and ultimately may end up in a better position.
Okay.
So it works for whatever it works financially for you at that time.
Yeah, well, that's why you need a good mortgage lender that can help somebody decide when you're looking at all the different pieces if they are in that category and if it works for them to buy.
Sure. It's all about getting a strategy in place. And it may not mean buying now. It may be 6 months or a year or 2 years from now.
Planning
but it
ahead.
doesn't hurt to get your baseline, is what I call it.
Yeah.
Then we build from there and have that strategy in place.
I agree. Every buyer that contacts me that is going to be a mortgage person,
Right.
I say start with the mortgage lender.
Yes.
Go through that process first so
That's
you
right.
know what you're comfortable with,
That's
and
right.
then I can take it from there.
That's
And
right.
help you find the house. So great information, Benny. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to be doing more of these. There's a lot to talk about. Both Benny and I get calls all the time about the real estate market, the mortgage industry, all of what really impacts so many of us. So we want to help share that information with you. So stay tuned. We will have more. Have a great day.